hope you had a great weekend, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion, and thank you for your comments. I must say that something happened last week with the Facebook page. I normally get all your comments come through to me on my telephone, and there's some sort of little site that I can answer them through, which I do. But for a few days there, I didn't get any comments, so I didn't answer any comments. I think I don't know whether they put another program in the telephone or whatever they did, because, you know, when they send you a little thing on your smartphone to plug it in and leave it on the charger, and they'll update the technology overnight or whatever, when they do that, they seem to muck it up more often. I mean, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think I'm getting messages now, but I'm a bit nervous about technology at the best of times. May the 8th, before we get into the stuff of the day, May the 8th, it's VE Day today, Victory in Europe. Victory in Europe. 1942, the aircraft carrier USS Lexington sunk by Japanese air attack in the Coral Sea. Because the Coral Sea went on for a few days. We were talking about it last Friday. But the same day, 1945, VE Day. World War II ends in Europe after Germany signs an unconditional surrender. German General Wilhelm Keitel formally surrenders to the Allied representatives of the United States, the UK, France and the Soviet Union in Berlin. The end of World War II. 1847, Scott Robert Thompson patents the rubber tyre. So that was the rubber tyre in 1847. In 1879, George Selden, on the same day, files the first patent for a gasoline-driven automobile. My God, you put a gas-driven automobile along with rubber tyres and you've got a car. Wow, indeed. George Peppard, American actor. I don't have the time today, but I could tell you a wonderful story about George Peppard and my first wife. 1994 was the year. George Peppard, American actor. Breakfast at Tiffany's, he was in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Banachek, the A-Team was another one. The Blue Max. He dies at just 65. That was in 1994. A good actor. I liked him. 1919, Edward George Honey first proposes the idea of a moment's silence to commemorate the armistice of World War I. The idea led to Remembrance Day. Edward, and I have never heard of him before, but he was the man who came up with it. Edward George Honey. 1919 the year. The first James Bond movie, Dr. No, starring Sean Connery, premieres in America in 1963. Oskar Schindler and his wife Emily were honoured for saving 1,200 Jews during World War II in a ceremony on the Avenue of the Righteous in Jerusalem. On this day in 1962, Harry Truman, 33rd US President, he died in 1972, born in 1884. Dennis Waterman, English stage and screen actor. Fair Exchange, Minder, The Sweeney. Old Dogs was good. That was a clever idea for a show. Bringing all these older than normal detectives out of retirement, bring their wisdom and experience to the table to solve crime. Good idea. You could probably work with radio stations too. Yes, anyway, he dies of lung cancer. He was also a singer too. 1974. Now, he died at 74 in 2022. China cedes Taiwan to Japan under a treaty. Now, of course, they want it back desperately. That was in, mind you, that was in 1895. But a crystal ball might be useful in history, mightn't it? Film and television production and distribution studio Paramount Pictures is founded on this day in 1912. They, of course, own Channel 10 here. Lionel Rose, Australian boxer. He was also a singer too. He had a song. Do you remember it?
Thank You, or I Thank You, was it?
Yes, that's right.
Something like that.
I thank you. Thank you. It was a good song. A country song. I thank you for being you. I just really thank you for being you. Yeah, Lionel Rose, 2011. He dies at only 62. Ship from Bordeaux carrying the plague lands at Morecambe Regis, now Weymouth in Dorset, beginning the terrible pestilence, the Black Plague, in England on this day in 1349. You see, be careful. Don Rickles, loved Don Rickles, irreverent, wonderful man. He could insult you, but it was also so funny. Don Rickles, American comedian. He was born in Queens. He died in 2017, and he was born in 1926. He worked to the very end. You know, he was working well into his 80s or 90s. What else can I tell you? The first transatlantic flight takes off by a seaplane, a Navy seaplane, in 1919. John Gates. John Gates, better million Gates, American inventor and industrialist who established the market for barbed wire. He made the market for barbed wire fencing. You know, there are people who collect barbed wire now. Highly sought after. I thought barbed wire was just barbed wire, but no, apparently not. Born in Chicago, in Illinois, he died 1911, but born this day in 1855. And Ricky Nelson, I think Pete and I, we like his music, don't we? Ricky Nelson, American pop star. Hello, Mary Lou, It's Late, Garden Party. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. That was the TV show with Mum and Dad. Born in New Jersey. He died in 1985, born 1940. I think he had a DC-3 that he used to fly around to various gigs, and it came down on one sad occasion, killed him. Now, where do we start? Let's talk about influences. I don't know where influencers get their influence. But influencers and finfluencers, which is a new kind of incarnation, finfluencers are apparently under the ACCC microscope. It's all about misleading testimonials and endorsements. The ACCC asked for some public feedback. They went on a fishing expedition and they got 150 tip-offs. These influencers are everywhere. They've got their fingers in all sorts of different pies: fashion, parenting, lifestyle, beauty, food, travel, health, and of course, finances. Manipulative marketing, they say, using social media. Now, I know we were talking about apathy last week, but maybe naivety is something else we could be accused of. We don't do something just because we see it on social media, do we? Anyway, there are all sorts of laws covering disclosure, which have apparently been ignored by most of these people. I mean, I get what they're doing. I won't say I did it myself, but I get the principle of it. making ads look and feel like part of the program, the conversation. That's clever. People listen to programs. They get involved in programs. They don't listen to ads, which is why it's silly when you hear radio people, and TV people too, to an extent, saying things like, I mean, I would say shooting themselves in the foot, saying things like, okay, we'll take a break and be right back. Where are they going? Where are they going? And then he or she says, after the commercial break, something like, welcome back. Well, where have they been? You see, it's breaking the flow. It was an old saying in radio when I first got into radio, and that was, the curtain never comes down. And the other one was, you never let anyone see what's behind the curtain. It's another important thing in show business. But of course, what's behind the curtain is sometimes a lot more interesting than what's in front of the curtain. You know, these influencers, what they try to do is to weave it all together. You know, the bit of information they've got with the bit that they've managed to get a few dollars for having sold. Now, even if they are breaking the law, you've got to look at it and think to yourself, it's our fault for just simply being naive and taking advice to go and buy something from someone who probably doesn't have the credibility to do it anyway. Anyway, big time ACCC investigation. The saga of the submarines gets more interesting. The contingency fund for the program is $125 billion. $125 billion. This is just for variations, unforeseen contingencies, overruns. $125 billion. I would have thought that the stated budget of $380 billion would have covered everything, more than everything. To just put it in some perspective, $125 billion, if converted into $1 coins and stacked up, the pile would reach the moon. Think about it. Our money. I think these people are stark staring mad. Stark staring mad. So they're not looking at 380 billion, they're looking closer to 500 billion. Anyway, on one hand, Labor is very keen on closing down coal-fired power stations, as we were talking about last week. Closing down coal-fired power stations is, in my mind, closing down the economy, while admitting that the two great initiatives are not sustainable. The two great labour initiatives, meaning the NDIS and the DSP, which is the Disability Support Pension. Closing down the economy while you're requiring more and more money doesn't seem to me to be a clever piece of politics. See, I could have told them back on day one, in fact I think I did. What are you going to do, fellas? The NDIS is looking at $97 billion a year alone, a running cost of $97 billion a year. Now, I know you're going to do this and you're going to do that and try and keep a lid on things, but I can't see how you're going to unscramble that omelette. How do you put that genie back in the bottle? I assume you care. Let's see, I'm collecting useful one-liners. If you've got any, send them to me. If in doubt, don't, is one of my favourites. Do no harm is another one, which used to be the motto or slogan for the medical profession. It should be the political profession as well. Here's one for the Prime Minister. Live within your means. I rather like that. In radio, I guess you'd still use the expression shock jock. There's still a few of them around. You'd have called Jerry Springer, if he was on radio, a shock jock. A former politician, well, in what we would call local government anyway. He ran for governor once, I think. Well, he's died at the age of 79, you might have heard. You might have been a fan of his show, in fact. He was top rated in daytime television for almost 30 years. Oprah was great, but Jerry always beat her in the ratings, and that's a fact. Always. I often say that to do a radio talk show, you have to be part lion tamer and part child psychologist. But what Jerry did was fascinating. He'd bring out on live television two warring parties, warring for one reason or another. Families, neighbours, business associates, and quite happy to air all the dirty linen you could possibly think right there on live television. That's only in America. Anyway, you'd get a public screaming match. You'd maybe get a full-on fist fight. It was a circus. It was entertainment, and he was the ringmaster. He would walk around up and down in the audience with a handheld microphone, waving it like a whip. Entertainment, exploitation, social work, group therapy, or maybe Jerry Springer, it was the very first reality TV show. I don't know, but it sure worked. We had a good response when I mentioned earlier in the week the number of public servants and what they cost. Well, it wasn't earlier, it was last week, yeah. Just the cost of public servants. Well, here's another fun fact. How much does welfare cost in Australia? Social Security. Social Security and welfare expenditure for last year cost $227.5 billion. Can you get your mind around that? $227.5 billion. That represents 33.9% of the Australian government's total expenditure on everything. That's the budget. Biggest slice. In this young, vibrant country, more than 1/3 of the total expenditure, tax collection, is spent on welfare. Doesn't seem right to me. Have I got time to mention Bruce Lehrmann? Bruce has been cleared to take various media outlets to court over alleged defamation involving the Brittany Higgins issue. Now, I won't say anything about it now. Once it's free of the courts, you can imagine I'll have plenty to say about the whole thing. It cost me, what I said anyway, allegedly, cost me my job at 5AA. So you can understand there are many interesting things that I can perhaps put on the table. And before I leave you, I had a fun night the other night. A fun night. I went to an exhibition at our beautiful art gallery on North Terrace. It is a wonderful, imposing building. It was the Andy Warhol exhibition. Several hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Andy Warhol stuff. You know, Campbell's soup tins, a big Coca-Cola bottle, pictures of famous people, or in their day, I suppose you might call them would-bes if they could-bes. He came up with the slogan or the phrase, everyone in the world has 15 minutes of fame. Well, it could be, I don't know. I don't argue. Anyway, once I got over the welcome to country rubbish, It was a fascinating example of the power of one man's personality, moving opinions, style, taste, artistic trends, and in the beginning a lonely and impoverished eccentric, homeless in fact, part of the time. Today, one of his creations can, and has, sold for $200 million. Why? Now, I'm not into modern art or pop art. Whether it's the promotion of it, the inspiration that it provides, or it's an incredible con, I don't know. But I am reminded of the paintings that have been done by, I remember seeing one. Pete, did you ever see the painting that was done by the elephant? You know, they gave the elephant the paintbrush.
Yes, I think I saw him actually painting.
And the elephant painted. And the painting was quite valuable, right? But I don't know, was that art? And I've seen monkeys. Chimpanzees do the same thing. I somehow like a painting or a picture to look like a picture of something. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll be with you tomorrow in the Court of Public Opinion. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself. Pete and I will be back. Thanks for viewing.